All right, we are live, but we got to let it breathe just for a moment here. Hang tight while we bring on Facebook. We'll get things rolling on what will be the last podcast of 2023. And who better to share this opportunity with than Mr. Producer himself, Scott Kennedy. But listen, welcome in. It's the Gut Reaction. This is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. Zach Kelberman off tonight doing his thing, but we've got Scott here. And Scott, I gotta know, dude. Sean Payton moves mountains, creates a huge firestorm to bench Russ. Want to see Jarrett Stidham in the offense. We heard some things today from Ian Rappaport relative to kind of how maybe the locker room was viewing the quarterback situation. What did you think of Stidham today?
Well, I'll get to that in a second because I want to tell you what I think about Michaela Parker
Holy
first.
smokes.
And Michaela Parker coming in with much love to support the show to finish off 2023 with a bang. I hear the fireworks going off because that was a Michaela bomb that just went kaboom.
Kaboom. And my brain.
Kaboom. And, what's left of the hair over here is starting to go back all over. So, Michaela, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure when I get to do an evening show with these guys because it gives me a chance to say thank you for everything that you do for MHH. And Michaela says, wanted to wish everyone at MHH a happy new year, to you as well. Stidham was not good. The worst part is we won't be able to keep any of our valuable players here because of the salary cap. Season is over. What's to look forward to? I want to answer your question a little bit with, and then roll it into Michaela's. You asked me about, Stidham, Sean Payton. I think probably the best thing could have happened today did happen, which was Stidham was okay. He looked like a good backup quarterback. That's what he looked like. I shudder to think what would have happened if he had gone on a heater and threw 4 touchdowns and no interceptions and just had a small sample size against a dead-in-the-water team like the Chargers, who are playing hard for Gift Smith. And you move forward and think, oh, my God, this is it. And it just you build him up into something he's not, because who he is a good backup quarterback. The good thing, Michaela, on this, with the worst part is we won't be able to keep any of our valuable players here because of the salary cap. I disagree. I think you won't lose really anybody for salary cap reasons that you wouldn't want to keep. Now we went through it. We went through it the other day. I've gone through it a few times, and you can restructure basically whoever you want to with the big money contracts. Garrett Bowles, Justin Simmons, Cortland Sutton, and I can knock their salary caps down to $5 million. They're all between 16 and 20 next year. I move on completely from Tim Patrick. If he wants to come back on a vet minimum, fine. That's no problem. But I saved $10 million there. DJ Jones right now is a cut candidate. That's not, I don't care if you were $50 million under the salary cap. That's the truth right there, is he hasn't played into a $13 million. So while it's going to be harder to go out and sign new people, you're going to have to hit in the draft for sure. I think you can pretty much keep the attrition from this team, other than maybe Lloyd Cushenberry, is minimal. It's very minimal.
Yeah. Those are fish that'll be fried when we get to it. The bridge will cross when we get to it. Honestly, they can do so much nowadays with salary cap voodoo that I wouldn't worry too much about it. Is it an asset? Obviously not, the Broncos salary cap situation, but if they can get a few of those players to play balls, unlike Russ, relative to restructuring some things, they're going to cut some contracts.
Come on, dude. You can't take a shot like that and then not back it up.
Take a shot? What are you talking about?
If these guys will play ball, unlike Russ, who was unwilling to.
No, it is what it is. If they're open to renegotiating, I mean, a restructure is a restructure.
A restructure would be an extension where they're going to be getting more money, not strong-arming somebody into waiving an injury guarantee that he can be benched and cut later.
You didn't read the Rappaport article today. Hold on, let me educate you on something real quick. Benefit of the doubt here. So this is kind of beside the point, so I'll paraphrase. I'm not going to take the time to go pull it up, but you know how we heard in that report, and of course, Russ accusing the Broncos of threatening him to bench him, blah, blah, blah. All right. NFLPA got involved. NFLPA, according to a source from Rappaport, they did not perceive a threat The Broncos didn't threaten him. So define strong arm to me.
They didn't have any leverage.
They just asked him.
They didn't have any leverage, so they couldn't
asked him.
strong arm him.
He said no. And that's his
Asking him to do
prerogative.
this.
Under contract, that's his prerogative.
It's very different than saying, okay, Justin Simmons, you've got an $18 million cap hit next year. You're due $18 million in salary. I want to pay you $18 million in a bonus and give you a 4-year deal for $30 million with a $1 million salary next year that pays you $19 million because of the salary, because of the signing bonus I'm going to give you, which knocks your total cap hit from 18 to $5 million. You cannot even come close to comparing the two of those, Chad.
Okay. Hold on. This is what Rappaport reported real quick, okay? For what it's worth on what the Broncos asked. And this is news, by the way. It's not just Scott and I arguing. This came out today. So this is Rappaport quoting a source that last summer, quote, and again in October, so this has happened twice in this calendar year, during the bye week, George Payton discussed with the quarterback's longtime agent, Mark Rodgers, potentially altering Wilson's contract, pushing back the early vesting date. This is key, Scott. Pushing back the early vesting date of his 2025 injury guarantees. As it stands now, the $37 million in injury guarantee in 2025 would become fully guaranteed in March of 24. Payton figured that moving the date back to the start of the new league year in 25 would increase the viability of both Wilson short and long term, since it would eliminate the need for the Broncos to make a 2-year decision on him within the next couple months, drastically raising the chances of him being a Bronco in 24. Wilson viewed it as a threat to be benched, as he said this week. Ultimately, he was not benched until 7 weeks later, with the Broncos ranking poorly, blah, 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 the losses. And then last thing, as many agents do amid negotiations, Rodgers took the Broncos' proposal to the NFLPA, which often consults with agents on big money player contracts. The union did not view any threat of being benched as real, and Wilson turned down the Broncos' offer, which is his right. No grievance was filed, and it's unlikely one will be. One source called such negotiations commonplace, close quote. So that's the context fully from a source. I got to imagine it's the Broncos.
100% completely different than what we're talking about and how you can massage the salary cap and give people extensions, signing bonuses in order to get guys under the salary cap for people you want to keep.
Of course, it's different.
Apples and oranges.
Yes.
Not even close to the same thing.
Correct. I think we're talking past each other a little bit on this subject. But on to Michaela's point on moving things around, it really means that the draft's that much more crucial this year, which is kind of a little bit of a bummer, Scott, not just because they're a little bit more strapped on the cap, but if you wanted to be able to move up and parlay some future picks and all that to move up and get a quarterback you're in love with, you can't mortgage the future when you're also overextended on the cap. Like it's not ideal.
Yeah, it makes it hard because you're going to need more of those players. You're right now when you're going to take back-to-back $40 million dead cap hits, draft picks are your best friend. More picks is more better.
Let's talk about Stidham though for a second. What did you think of Stidham today? Like, I agree though, by the way, with what you said, that it was the worst thing that could have happened was these last two games, Stidham starts them, goes on a romp, and then everyone starts fooling themselves into thinking that he's someone to hang your hat on. It alters the offseason plan. They don't go all in trying to find a quarterback the old-fashioned way in the draft. They wait till the 3rd or 4th round or something, and then you're in purgatory again, 2024. So he looked like a serviceable backup to me. And this was, by the way, Scott, against a defense that is not good. He went 20 of 32 for 224 yards and a touchdown. So he was like quietly efficient with a QB rating of 93.8. And that touchdown, let us not forget, was a Herculean play made by Lil Jordan Humphrey with some great help down the field. I was like rubbing my eyes. I'm like, is that Jerry Jeudy doing extra effort, making a block downfield? I mean, Burton was down there. That was a cool play.
What it did was show everyone the reason why the Denver Broncos need to move on from Russell Wilson and get out from under his contract. Because looking at a box score, there wasn't really much difference. I can get away with a backup quarterback in Jarrett Stidham and get just about the same production that I can get for $50 million in the coming years from Russell Wilson. So the question becomes, and why was this move made from Russell Wilson? Because I am convinced, as Sean Payton, as a general manager, as the Denver Broncos, that I cannot win with Russell Wilson and his cap hit. Okay. So I'm going to have his cap hit for 2 years, no matter what. But if I don't make this move now, I'm going to have that cap hit for years 3, possibly years 4.
Yeah.
And that's going to cripple my team where it won't do me any good. I can survive this cap hit because I can get equivalent play from my backup quarterback.
Yeah.
That's why the move was made. And it showed everybody, listen, no, Russell Wilson isn't the entire problem in this offense, but he's not the answer either. And that's what it boils down to.
Indeed. Chris, my brother, always with the symbolic super chat on a gut reaction. Back-to-back weeks of just amazing generosity. We love you. We appreciate you. We're looking forward to having you on once the season's over. I mean, one more week for we'll get the superstar segments rolling again. It's going to be dope. Chris, love you, big dog. He says, eliminated from the playoffs, but we still have a chance to 1, break the losing streak to the Raiders, 2, Broncos have their first winning season in 7 years, then on to what I hope is a productive offseason. Amen to that. Unfortunately, Broncos, that loss, Scott and I were talking about it right before we hit the old go live button. Even with the Chiefs winning today, if the Broncos don't lose to the Patriots and they win today, there's still a really good chance they could come out on top with the division, and thus all of the wild card iterations not really even applying. But yeah, that's it. That's all she wrote on the season. But Scott, to me, let's say this team finishes with 9 wins. They get a win. They snap the streak, as Chris and all of us are hoping for next week against the Raiders. Get a win for the first time in that stadium ever, by the way, for the Broncos. That would mean, Scott, that Sean Payton moved the needle plus 4 games over what the previous coaching staff did last year amid a really huge hole that was dug, 1-5 start, quarterback instability, some other obstacles. What would you make of the year 1 body of work if it does in fact turn out that the Broncos finish 9-8 with a winning season for the first time since 2016?
You have to take a look at the whole body of the work, but because the highs were really high and the lows were really low.
Right.
There was much more variance than I was expecting from this team, where nobody would have thought 1-5. And I promise you, at 1-5, nobody was thinking 6-1. At the end of the year, if this team finishes 9-8, we're all going to be pretty much within a game, maybe 2, of where we thought this team could be. And I won't speak for everybody, but I know I underestimated how hard it actually is to come in and turn things around like that. And Chris, thank you very much for that super chat. I underestimated the putting in a new system, the culture, et cetera, et cetera. You can't just wave a magic wand. You saw things starting to happen, and you saw a competent team that could go out and beat a team they should beat. Now, was it pretty? No, it wasn't. But let's think. You didn't get your quarterback wasn't there, the guy that you're expecting to be, dangerous. Cortland Sutton was out, guy leading your team in touchdowns. Marvin Mims, one of your big play guys, is out. I go back to where we thought this team was at the beginning of the season, with Randy Gregory and Frank Clark expected to be big-time contributors. You lost your safety, Caden Stearns. Now, everybody has injuries, but overall, finish even 8-9, I think this team has already it's come off the bottom. We hit bottom with the Denver Broncos for me against the Jets, 1-4. Last Christmas, it stayed on the bottom until the Jets started an uptick with a really good game against the Chiefs, and then beating the Chiefs, the uptick started. And there's been some ups and downs, but overall, on a long enough timeline, things keep moving up. That's where this team is headed for me, Chad. I think things are headed in the right direction.
I do too. I feel good about it, but
you're going to have to eat over the next 2 years. That's what sucks.
It does. And just to me, it's exciting, especially doing what we do as far as writing and talking about it every day. It's exciting, the prospect of entering an offseason on QB search, right? Like trying to find the guy to marry to Sean Payton, so to speak. But, it could be a harbinger, pardon me, of further growing pains to come. So that kind of tempers things. But Sean Payton did kind of instill an adult competency that has been lacking for a long time. Text, dude, what's up? Thank you, bro. It says, please tell me it will get better. This team is so boring to watch. 8 years of crap football with no end in sight. Where is the hope for fans it will ever change? Now we're in salary cap hell. Help. See, maybe, Scott, it's just my kind of glass half full mentality, but what you and I just got done talking about, how Sean Payton, despite some pretty serious obstacles, which he contributed to, is on pace, could very well finish with 4 wins better this year than what the Broncos had last year. I think there's a lot of signs that are emblematic of hope. The quarterback situation, if you want to, you could view that through a lens of hope. It's a little bit of an instability factor. We'll see how it plays out, but I do have hope. The salary cap thing, I think it's going to get fixed a little bit easier than people realize. It's still not going to be ideal, but as we talked about early on, you get some restructures, you cut some of the fat, and you have some breathing room. But I would tell you, Tex, chin up, because this team did take steps forward this season. Is it perfect yet, Scott? No, they're not a juggernaut. Were they competitively relevant? All the way down to the final gun of week 18. So that's definitely a step forward.
Yeah, and Patriots X, how I look at it is the salary cap didn't really change. It's just now you don't have Russell Wilson. Okay, I like using the baseball metric of WAR, WAR, wins against.
I thought you were talking about GWAR.
Yeah,
WAR. The rock band.
WAR. It's wins against replacement, and it basically means if I put in an average player as a 0, what number do I get? Well, basically, you had a $40 million dead cap hit for a 0. Your wins against replacement with your WAR score for Russell Wilson is basically 0. So replacing him with an average cheap quarterback won't hurt your team anymore, and your salary cap stays neutral because he was going to be on the books the next 2 years no matter what. Now it's just a matter of, can Russell Wilson be fixed? Is he going to be the problem? Now you don't have to worry about that. That is done. That's donezo. So you're going to have to do some. Having big, rich owners helps. Again, I can come to Garrett Bowles and say, this is how this works. He's got a big salary cap hit next year. He's due about $17-18 million. I can offer to pay him his $18 million as a signing bonus on a 4-year extension. That takes that $18 million and makes it'll be easier if I make it 16 across 4 years. That makes that a $4 million a year salary cap hit, and I can give him a $1 million salary or whatever the minimum is. Now his 2024 salary cap hit goes from 20 to 5. I back end some guarantees on the back end of it. Now he's got a $5 million, I just say $15 million, and he gets paid $19 million anyway. He's getting his money. I can do that. We've got owners that can write a $20 million check 3 or 4 times over, because that's what it's going to take, Chad.
No doubt. Kathy across the pond in Deutschland, Germany, checking in. Thank you. So good to see you. Much love. She says, Happy New Year to everyone from Germany. I already had 1 and over a half hour in 2024. Right. So she's already there. She's already living in next year. This is a time traveler.
What's the future like? Tell us.
What is it like?
Did the computers all crash?
She says, Stidham equals Wilson in play. MHH for life, 8-8. Go Broncos. Yeah, I mean, I would say, Scott, here's what I would say what's the biggest difference you saw today in one single sample size game from Stidham compared to what we've seen from Russ? I would say that the Broncos, like, his accuracy was off today, which somewhat surprised me, but the Broncos were a lot more on schedule, timing and rhythm wise in the passing game. Like, you actually saw Jerry Jeudy get utilized a little. You actually saw slants getting thrown today, Scott, which, far be it for me to get excited about a freaking slant, but Russ doesn't.
You should be, though. What was Michael Thomas's nickname in New Orleans?
Right.
The slant god. This guy went for about 2,000 yards in a season.
Yes. So I think he showed relatively good poise. There was a couple of times he showed you that he does have a little bit more in the athleticism department than maybe he gets credit for. But it was still, in my opinion, replacement level quarterback play, one game. But what does that tell you, Scott, relative to what he is kind of replacing, as far as, like, what does that mean to you relative to what he's replacing on Russ?
It means I'm getting the same thing for 10% of the cost. Again, I would look at a WAR stat and say, I'm coming out even. I can afford to make this cut because Russell Wilson, again, your point the other night was the reason why this is happening to Russell Wilson is because he hasn't been good enough. He isn't been worth what he's being paid. Forget everything else. That's the bottom line. That's why it's happening. Okay, well, yeah, I've got a salary cap hit. I was going to have that anyway. Now I can start trying to find different answers. Stidham was just about equal to Russell Wilson, and he would improve over the course of time with his receivers getting back.
Yeah.
Would he play more meaningful games? Again, be careful with a small sample size at the end of the season against teams that are basically, we called this a glorified exhibition for a reason.
Yeah.
It kind of was. Michaela Israel, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Thank you to the pod for being a blessing and being there for Cooper and I. You're here for us. It's the very least we can do, Michaela. Stu McPeak.
Can I just say something real quick, Scott? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
So if you guys,
dude,
you follow One Sec Zeus, we love you. You know this. And keep Zeus on. But Cooper went through a little bit of a tribulation in December, and so we sent him out a little care package with some MHH swag, so to speak. And if you guys want to see some of that, his picture, this, showing some of the stuff is pretty cool. It's on the MHH Instagram and Facebook. So if you want to check that out, but we love you too, Michaela and Coop. Keep a stiff upper lip, big dog. You the man. Zeus, bro, look at this. The first face on the MHH Mount Rushmore right here. Scott, wishing everybody a happy new year. Right back at you, brother. Thank you for your generosity and all the support and the conversation and community you bring to this whole enchilada we call MHH.
Yeah, I love doing the night shows because it gives me a chance to say thanks to y'all that are on at nights and I don't get to talk to, virtually at least, during the morning shows. So pleasure to be here on the Gut Reaction. Michael Ranquillo, I see Michael everywhere because Michael is everywhere. Michael says, good evening, Chad and Scott on the Mile High Huddle podcast, Gut Reaction, go Broncos. And Riptide says, hey, I disagree with Michaela Parker. Stidham has a better understanding of the offense, but needs to work on his accuracy. And follows things up by saying 99% of the people having a mental breakdown over this Russ thing do not know football. And I think the Broncos should play poker and keep Russ on the roster riding the pine next season. It's kind of what I said, but I said I'd watch out for the union on something like that, which kind of started rearing its head on that.
They've been involved. They have been involved. We've learned that.
When you say, listen, because it's actually cheaper to keep Russell Wilson on the roster the next 2 years and then just to cut him out. I think it's actually more beneficial for your cap hit the next 2 seasons than to cut him after 2 years. However, that $160 million guaranteed would become about $197 million guaranteed because you'd have to pay him that $37 extra in salary for 2025. The salary cap numbers would stay the same, but that's still $40 million coming out of somebody's pocket.
Cash is cash. And I think it's next to impossible that he weathers this and somehow sticks around. He said on Friday that he wants to, and hey, I signed up to come play in Denver for 7 years, et cetera, because he had 2 years left and then he got a 5-year extension.
Which hasn't even started. That's the craziest thing to me.
That is, dude.
You move on before his extension even started.
Yeah.
That's expensive. We talk about what's expensive, missing. That's too much. First round picks, too much for a coach. No, it's not. You know what's expensive? Missing.
Yeah.
The right coach is well worth a first round draft pick.
It's true. But I feel optimistic the way this thing is trending. So I say keep your chin up. And look, I will concur with you, Riptide, on the fact that it did seem like the offense, even though they just had some weird, like today, their ability to run the ball in short, gotta have it situations wasn't so hot. There were just some weird snafus, a lot of O-line penalties today. There were some things off, but from a passing perspective and just overall kind of have it together, I liked what it looked like. Justin, bro, thank you. Appreciate you. He says Stidham was as good as Russ at $5 million a year. Bye-bye, Russ. More money, better talent, and Stidham will be fine. Pass rush. Yeah, well, that's, Scott, one of the other downsides to it, the realization anyway, that it's not going to work out with Russ, is that you could really use a Batman-style edge rusher with your first-round pick this year, but now it's looking like you're going to need to do the old fashioned build a franchise quarterback thing and use it on a queue. Maybe you can have your cake and eat it too. Maybe there's a guy you can find in round 2 or round 3 or whatever, and I'm sure that you can. But that goes down a peg in terms of priority. You got to figure out what you're doing at quarterback.
Yeah, I just don't see that you're going to get one of the top 3 guys unless you want to give up another 3 picks and change.
Who are your top 3?
The top 3, Caleb, it's going to be everybody's top 3. It's Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. Put them in that whatever order you want to. After that, you have trouble actually getting anybody else into the first round. So you can start looking day 2. Well, there's a reason why they're day 2. We'll just take a guy in the second round. Well, that's hardly a guarantee. They're not guaranteed in the first either. Yeah. So the question here is, and as Justin says, Stidham will be fine. Man, I once told a girl I was dating in high school, this is how bad a word it was 30 something years ago. How old am I? Like almost 40 years ago. Jesus. She said, how do I look? I said, you look fine. Oh my God. You would have thought I would have slapped her mother. Fine. Yeah. Fine.
It's kind of how it's the delivery, Scott. It's what you say, not how you say it.
It's great.
How you say it, not what you say.
Yeah, because we're on the way out. Let's go. You look fine.
You look fine.
I look fine?
Yeah, but if you look fine. She would have got what you meant.
But Stidham will be fine. But that's the problem. Stidham is fine. He's fine. He certainly isn't going to light the blowtorch under anybody's getting really excited about, well, just think how good we can be next year with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. No, it's more like he'll be fine and maybe we can survive the bridge, but the ceiling is going to be kind of meh on something like that. But it's going to be really interesting because there's some really shoddy quarterback play in the NFL right now, and everybody needs backups too. I mean, there's 60 quarterbacks they're going to play. So everybody's looking for a quarterback.
Yep.
And it's going to be really, really expensive to try and get into the top 3 or to get Justin Fields, who might be a little cheaper, or to get Kyler Murray if they decide to take a quarterback and stay up there. So it's going to be really interesting. That I can promise you. But Lawrence says, is anyone really happy? Does anyone really think Stidham is the answer? It's just going to be another hole. And I think that could be part of the problem, Chad, is you're back to, man, we've been on this quarterback carousel since how long? 2000 what? 16, 17? Here we go again, Chad.
Basically the post Peyton Manning era has been one never-ending ride on that QB carousel and walking the desert. And, the hope was Russ could lead you out of that desert like Moses of old, but it's not shaking out that way. And it's not ideal, Scott, to be going into an offseason in search of a quarterback, but it's better at the same time when, like you said, they figured out, or they decided that they're better off without Russ, knowing what the contract is and the hits and whatnot. And so now you got to find on the cap, you got to find a quarterback solution. And I do trust. I mean, look, Sean Payton signed Jarrett Stidham quietly. A big sign for us is what he said when it happened. But he was signed to be a backup and a failsafe. I do trust Sean Payton's quarterback evaluation because, look, you go, oh, well, but, he talked up Russ and all that. We learned today how much of this you want to believe, I leave up to you. But this is from that same report, Scott, from Rappaport, a lot of little nuggets here. Payton, quote, was wary of Wilson, pardon me, wary of Wilson during his interview with the Broncos before they hired him last offseason. While he spoke in the interview of how to help turn him into a championship QB and how to fix him, he privately wasn't as sure it could be done. By taking the job, he committed to trying. It has not worked.
And he got reassurance that if he had to move on, he could.
Right.
I don't know if he wrote that, but I will.
Yeah.
So I won't write it as fact, but I'll tell you, it happened.
I only bring that up to enforce that it doesn't detract, like what's gone down between Peyton and Russ and the relative failure to launch, because Russ did take steps forward this year. Well, I say relative because it's not like he's been a 100% crap show. His touchdown to interception metrics are significantly improved. I mean, if he doesn't get benched, Scott, he was 2 games away from becoming the first quarterback since Peyton Manning to throw 30 touchdowns in a season. And that was 2014, the last time it happened. So he did take steps forward, but I do trust Peyton's ability. What I'm getting at here, to read and evaluate quarterbacks and find the right guy. It's just a matter of, do they have the resources to get that guy? We'll find out. Antonio, you the man. Good to see you. Thank you for the super. Says, hope we can end the season with a winning record. Any thoughts on who's playing QB next year? Scott.
Well, right now, Jarrett Stidham. So that'd be your answer. Now, does Jameis Winston come around? Does Jacoby Brissett come around? Do you trade on a flyer for Justin Fields? There's going to be a market for him. Kyler Murray is out there. Would Arizona be willing to pick up some of that check to move on from him? There's not a lot of good answers out there. There's going to be, I know some people have already said Drew Lock. Well, Drew Lock was a free agent last year and didn't get any offers as a starting quarterback. That's probably not going to change around the NFL. Going back and playing in Seattle might be the best thing for him. He might decide that I have a better chance of playing somewhere else. We'll see. But I almost think Sean Payton wants a robot out there. He doesn't want a freelance. He wants somebody out there that's going to go 1, 2, 3, read, throw.
Mm-hmm.
One read, throw. Change, and can step up. So, more talent. Does Jarrett Stidham have more talent than Russell Wilson? Probably not. I mean, Jarrett Stidham was a very talented guy. And you mentioned he was underrated as an athlete. He played for Gus Malzahn at Auburn. That's where Nick Marshall and Cam Newton ran that offense. And Nick Marshall got drafted as a corner, for God's sakes. That's what kind of athlete he was. Jarrett Stidham's a hell of an athlete. He has talent.
Yeah.
How good can he be? We'll see. But your bet right now is that's who's playing quarterback for you next year is Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah. That's your fail safe. I think the Broncos will make some moves probably through the draft. I think they'll try to do it the old fashioned way, knowing they got Stidham as kind of the shepherd to ease him into the NFL, whoever they end up drafting. But Naj, bro, from the top rope, we love you. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year, by the way, to everybody. Be safe tonight, whatever your plans are. Be smart, be safe. Naj says, hey, brothers, we all got the win. This is the least enthusiastic I've felt after a win. QB is the glaring unknown. No idea what the future holds, but let's beat the Raiders and get a winning season. Happy New Year, everyone. Cheers. Right back at you. Yeah. That's another streak of ignominy, Scott, that has to come to an end. I think it's 7, if I'm remembering right, 7 straight losses to the Raiders. So this one on the road to close out the season in a stadium, Allegiant, that the Broncos have yet to post a victory, and they had not won at SoFi this up till this year, by the way, ever. So this has been one of the other positives about, and I think, if I'm being honest here, Scott, evidences of things definitely having improved under Sean Payton is this year has very much been snapping streaks, right? You snap the Chiefs streak, you got a good chance to snap. Well, you snap SoFi, you got a good chance to snap the Raiders streak. You have a really good chance to snap the losing season streak. So to me, that's also a positive harbinger.
Yeah, and I think some of the air will have come out of the Raiders, that new coach bump that you get. That went away a little bit today when they went on the road and got beat by the Colts in a game. They beat the Chiefs and maybe peaked, and then they've come down a little bit. How much will this rivalry mean to them? How much will it mean to the Broncos? How much will this game mean? I mean, it's a rivalry game. We know it means something to the fans, but really, who's playing for what here besides pride and knowing it's the 17th game season? I don't know what to expect. It would be nice to get rid of that frickin' streak, go out with a win. Sean Payton's going to be there next year. They're not sure if Antonio Pierce will be. So I want to play for my coach because he's the one that's going to be deciding how much I'm going to play next year. So, Naj, Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much for the support, my friend. I'm looking forward to seeing you in 2024 since I missed you in 2023. Justin Floyd with some good words. Says, Scott, we agree on one thing. That's why you're the GOAT. I mean, hey, if you agree with me, you must be smart. Keep it up, brother. Enjoy your takes. Nick's okay. Just playing. Great show, guys. Thank you. Appreciate you being here, Justin. And seriously, enjoy the banter. And again, it's never about agreeing or disagreeing. You saw Chad and I disagree pretty vehemently right off the top of the show. It's just about being respectful.
Yeah.
I ban people all the time, and they'll go people and say, hey, banned me because I disagreed and said so and so. No, you got banned because you were being an a-hole. Had nothing to do with your point of view. I'll listen to anything, man.
Plus, I got to be honest with you, like I as a prolific listener of podcasts myself, I mean a podcast that is always 100% two guys or two hosts um agreeing on everything can
Or
get a little bit
disagreeing for the
boring.
sake of disagreeing.
Exactly. Now, the flip side to that is like with radio, one of the reasons I found myself I'm not cut out for radio is they want you to purposefully wedge and create issues that each host is on the opposite end, even if you're not, and it starts feeling real hollow and manufactured and artificial. But when Scott and I get into it, we go back. So guys, don't ever think there's feelings. Like it's all fun. And like Scott said, it's how you approach it and how you are respectful of each other's opinions. And we don't share a brain on everything, but I love this dude. Scott's the man, indispensable. Miguel, also indispensable. What's up, dude? He says most expected 8 and 9 or 9 and 8. I feel like finishing above about 500 is a success. Head up, Broncos country. Yeah, I mean, even if you lose next week, knock on wood. All right, because I want to see that. I honestly would rather. This might sound ridiculous, but I would rather see the Broncos snap the Raiders streak and finish plus 500 for what it does to this team's spirit and emotional constitution and culture than the 2 or 3 spots in the draft that it might help them relative to a quarterback. But this team has shown significant improvement, but it still has plenty of warts. The job is far from done for Sean Payton bringing this team back to, it's where it belongs at the top.
No, I consider the turnaround, the in-season turnaround to me is remarkable.
Yeah.
If you asked me at the beginning of the season, would you be disappointed with 8 and 9? Yeah, I would. I probably would have been. At 1 and 5, if you ask me, would you be disappointed with 8 and 9? I'd say you're out of your mind if you think this team's going to finish 8 and 9 when they're sitting there at 1 and 5.
One
and it
win.
looks like the entire team needs to be blown up and sent out to orbit.
Yep.
So there's definitely some good things in here for sure. And there were some very good things to take that were successful in the season. As Jeremy says, remember, we won 5 games last year. And, and Jeremy also says, anyone expecting Stidham to come in and look like Manning with mostly practice squad receivers is delusional. His timing was off, but he was pretty collected. Yeah, he had, for a guy making his first start of the season, a backup quarterback missing a couple of pretty important weapons. I thought he had a great game, relatively speaking. I think he looks like a good backup.
He was
solid. Going to be
man.
good enough next year? Because basically that's what Russ has looked like this year too.
True. And I'm just, apologies for glancing down at my phone, guys. It's not because I'm not engaged, but normally I don't want to pay any attention to what Payton or any of the players are saying at the podium post game. But in the wake of the kind of significance of this particular game, I've kind of kept an eye out on seeing some of the quotes from Payton, specific to, of course, Stidham. And he said that he's basically been, he felt like he was poised, where to go, kept us on schedule. He was good, played with poise, efficient in and out of the huddle. So even right there, Scott, you see a couple of, this is jumping to conclusions, trying to kind of read some of the implications. But to me, I interpret that as he didn't necessarily feel like Russ was always playing with poise. Maybe he didn't feel like the Broncos were always being efficient coming in and out of the huddle. That was a point of emphasis for him. So is it anything to write home about? No. He showed you that he's replacement level quarterback that could get the job done about as well, if not, depending on how you want to categorize it, maybe even better than Russ. That tells you why the Broncos made it an issue that it was, that turned into a big crap storm this week as far as, and the Broncos had to have known that it was going to be a crap storm. You bench a quarterback like Russ, you're going to have a lot of eyeballs on you. But Jen Lee, good to see you on Facebook. Appreciate you. Thank you for the star support. Always great to see you. It means a lot. But Stidham, we're not writing home, Scott. It is what it is, and it's a good thing because it shouldn't change, and it won't change what the approach is in the offseason. Just keep punching. Thank you. Good to see you. I guess Sean Payton proved his point. He can get the same amount of production out of a below-average quarterback without Cortland Sutton and Mims. In case you're just joining us, guys, Stidham finished 20 of 32, 224 yards and a touchdown with a QB rating of 93.8. And, Scott, that's kind of where Russ has lived for most of this season is right above 200 yards passing, about a touchdown and a half a game, and a rating somewhere between 95 and like 103. That's about the zone he's lived in.
Yeah, really low yards per attempt, really low yards per completion. Now there were a couple in there that help skew those numbers upwards a little bit, some nice catch and runs, but you expect to get a few of those too. So that's kind of what the athlete was kind of quarterback proof. And if I'm not winning because of my quarterback, then I don't need to have a $40 million cap hit on my quarterback.
Yeah. Exactly.
And again, the move to move Russell Wilson wasn't about 2024 or 2025 so much, because you're going to have him on the books regardless. It's then about 2026 and 2027. And if I can get replacement level quarterbacking for a tenth of the price, we need to do that. So that's what that was about. Black Knight over there on Twitch, good to see you. He says, okay, so what's the thought on the rumor of Sean Payton being interested in Baker Mayfield and bringing him to the Broncos? Not going to happen. Baker Mayfield's going to play his way into about, I said $20 to $25 million, and Nick scoffed at me. He says he's going to be getting in the 30-plus range on the open market. Baker Mayfield has had a really, really good season for Tampa Bay, and he's going to play himself into a contract that will be out of range for the Denver Broncos. So take that rumor and then record this for when it actually happens. You can say, see, you don't know what you're talking about, but take that rumor and just swoosh, flush that one.
I always liked Baker, even all of his BS at Oklahoma and some of the stuff that's happened in the league. I've always liked Baker, but one thing I got to remind everybody that I'll echo from Zach the other night, which is this time around, let's not fool ourselves as an organization into reclamation projects, trying to think, if we could just get this guy in our scheme, it could be different. Like, let Sean Payton go out with a brand new canvas and find his quarterback to help him paint a beautiful picture in the Mile High City. I like him. Don't get me wrong. And Baker, like Scott said, has been an eye-opening. It's an eye-opening performance this year in Tampa, but we'll find out as the offseason marches along. And that's one of the things I look forward to, is the rumor mill that comes as a result of a team being in the quarterback market. We'll see how much, fire there is to that particular rumor, that smoke, so to speak.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield on a team that we weren't really expecting that much out of Tampa had, similar numbers to Russell Wilson with 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, but he's pushing the ball downfield so much more with 3,600 yards. He's going to get some money. He's not going to be affordable next year. It's going to be one of those bridge type backup guys, or a draft pick, or like we said, Jarrett Stidham. That's where you're looking. Matt, we'll pass your comment on. Thank you for the stars. We'll pass your comment on to Zach, but he wants to thank Zach for dealing with his tweets. He's NJ, New Jersey, I would guess. Bronco, respect you and your takes. Just sometimes need to vent frustrations, and don't we all? That's why these guys are called the priests. I'm
sure Zach would love hearing it. So come back tomorrow, and he'll be back tomorrow night. So appreciate you, big dog.
Patriots Hex comes in again. He says, I'm all for taking a flyer on Michael Penix if we can get him. Personally, I'd trade back, stockpile picks, and build this roster's depth. We need youth and speed. Happy New Year to you as well. Hashtag MHH for life. I like Penix too. He's had a couple of knee injuries already, which is a bit scary. And speaking of which, I'm sure it's already been said in the chat, but I'm also sure the Broncos country would like to send a big get well soon to Bradley Chubb, who tore up an ACL today for the Miami Dolphins. And that's going to knock him out of what could be a really good season, right, for the Dolphins playoff run. And
that's 3.
Could take him out for a good bit of next year too.
He had one in college, had one with the Broncos. So yeah, this is 3. That's just, it is just terrible news for Chubb. Hurts definitely the Dolphins' outlook, because they need
he was playing well this year for them.
Yeah, no doubt. Yes. Well, good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Thoughts and prayers out to the Chubb Meister. And Tex, Happy New Year right back at you, big dog. Much love and respect. We got Riptide jumping in again. Number 4 tonight, going off. Love it, big dog. He says, feel like Bo Nix, the Oregon quarterback, fits what Payton wants to do. Now, Scott, I know you've already spent exceedingly more time looking at, talking at, analyzing about 2024 draft than yours truly. Bo Nix seems like he would fit in the kind of offense Payton runs, but do you see him as being bona fide? Like, does he have future franchise quarterback upside as far as untapped potential? Is it possible?
We'll see. I'm biased. I went to Auburn. I watched him play at Auburn for several years and not be very good. I watched him go to Oregon and come back and play against Georgia and look like a deer in headlights. I watched him some this year and thought, okay, I'm going to try and wipe away my bias as much as I can and try and give him a clean slate. And all I see him do was throw the ball side to 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 side. There weren't really many NFL throws in there. Every once in a while, I'd see him roll out and turn it loose and throw downfield and be like, okay. Now, when I watched Washington play Oregon, I thought I was like, okay, which guy would you rather have, Michael Penix or Bo Nix? It's not even close.
Yeah.
It's Michael Penix. But again, a couple of knee injuries later, and that worries me a little bit. And Bo's probably a little bit more accurate, especially on some of the short passing game that Sean Payton, to your point, wants to do out there. But I saw Bo Nix the top 10. I'm like, I'd be scared of him in the first round, man.
Yeah.
In the second round, but Riptide's in here a few times. He says player of the game, Brandon Johnson, big catches. I think that's a good shout. And he says trade back, get a second round draft pick, take wide receiver Jordan Addison in the first, and then Bo Nix with your newly acquired second. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Jordan Addison has a chance of winning NFL Rookie of the Year for the Minnesota Vikings this year. Wasn't he a first round draft pick out of USC last season, or am I getting my Jordan Addisons confused?
Now I'm confused here
because that makes me doubt myself. I'm like, wait a minute,
this dude is I mean,
Jordan Addison had
he's a Viking
for the Vikes this year.
He's a Vike.
That one's gonna be a little tough. That one's gonna be a tough.
But Scott, real quick before we grab this other one from Riptide, it just made me think of something because you brought up, and by the way, what is this one? Number 6, Riptide? You're going off, dude. Thank you. You mentioned earlier, what does Sean Payton want in a quarterback? Ideally he wants a robot, not a mindless, android, so to speak. He wants a robot in the sense that they're reliable. You can count on him to do what you need him to do in the scheme, but it still comes back to levels of mastering nuance. Like if you go back and look at all those prolific offenses with Drew Brees, Brees was very robotic. Peyton Manning, all those years of his prolific production, very robotic because they master the nuance and they take that base level scheme and open up and turn it into something special. And that's what a robot, so to speak, like Robot of Doom on Twitch. I'm going to grab one from you here in a minute, Robot of Doom. That's what you're looking for. But one thing I noticed today, Scott, real quick, and then we'll finish up with Riptide, is when we talk about, like you said, Bo Nix and the short area accuracy and throwing side to side and whatnot, that does seem to be kind of a thing Sean Payton likes. Today, watching Jarrett Stidham, he took a few shots. I'll tell you, here's one thing that was quite evident in terms of difference between Jarrett Stidham and Russ. The deep ball, Stidham not even close to Russell Wilson, who remains and proved this year that is still one of his strong suits. He is one of the better vertical passing accuracy cues in the NFL.
Yeah, which is where the play action comes along. When we're talking about robotic, it's funny, I start thinking side to side. I always think of Rocky, side to side, like a windshield wiper. So you gotta stick and move a little bit. I'm like, Sean Payton would probably rather have Jared Goff than Josh Allen. Just
probably,
just somebody that would go back, stick a foot in the ground, and stay on all the time rather than freelance.
Yep.
And that's just now the dream is Patrick Mahomes who can do both.
Yeah.
But that's why he's considered by pretty much everyone the best player in football. That's that one. He doesn't count. We move him off to his own side of this. But Riptide said, I'm waiting for the stat watchers who didn't watch the game to go on a roll comparing Russ to Stidham. Similar but different. I could listen to the game and tell you the difference was Stidham steps up in the pocket and throws the ball.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't happen. You talk about poise. Poise is poise in the pocket, not necessarily just command of the huddle, which I think Russ does a really good job with. You can tell that by how they come back in the fourth quarter. He's calm, he's poised, and can get people moving in the fourth. He's not calm and poised in the pocket, though. I don't think anybody's ever going to – that's not exactly a hot take. Now, what is a hot take? We asked Kathy to give us the read of the future because she's over in Germany. It's already 2024 there. She says, well, what's it look like in 2024? She says, Scott and Chad, the Broncos still need a quarterback in 2024. That's what it looks like in 2024. Well played. Well played, my friend.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate you.
George coming in says, Happy New Year to all Bronco country. And a huge thank you to the best pod on football, Denver Broncos for life, MHH for life. Yeah, there's a lot of different flavors on the Mile High Huddle podcast family. And I'm glad to be a part of several of them. So have a lot of fun here.
Doing some fill-in duty Friday night with Eric, holding it down.
And Sunday, here we are again. I'm a lefty, so bring a lefty in from the mound. But Justin, this is Chad over here. This is Chad today.
Yeah.
So, Chad, what is our scheme? We've had 3 different head coaches in 3 to 4 years, a giant mistrade in a quarterback, and a giant contract where we can't buy top free agents. We should be happy finishing above 500. And this is where I get into, I kind of, especially in draft, I don't mind it so much in free agent, but when anybody wants to talk to me about scheme in a draft pick, I want to smack them. Because that draft pick's going to outlast the coach, either the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, the head coach, or all 3 of them. So if you're drafting for scheme, you're in trouble because schemes are going to change. They're going to change year to year. So it's what is the scheme? We'll see. We know what the you really haven't seen Sean Payton's scheme. You've seen him try to win football games based on what he has.
Yeah.
But you haven't really seen him unleash really the screenplay game, the tight end play, the slant god, as we talked about. You haven't seen any of that yet.
Couldn't stay on schedule, man. Russ hits that back foot and runs. And again, we go back to that idea of a robot in the pocket, like Drew Brees, Russell Wilson. People go, hey, why isn't Russ throwing when he hits his back foot? Oh, he can't see. Why doesn't he ever climb the pocket? He can't see. Look, Drew Brees had an inch on him? Is it maybe 2? Maybe 2. All right. That's not what it is. It's just his disposition. And you're right, Scott, about a few warts from this season's offense scheme-wise that makes you kind of question or have a hard time identifying exactly what it is relative to what we know of Sean Payton's resume. But they didn't have that stud tight end this year because of the Dulcich injury. And they just, with Russ and the collection of talent that's here, he went in way early, did Payton, on building this thing around the run. He stuck to it doggedly. They couldn't get that screen game going. And the quarterback consistency has been, I think, one of the biggest things that's held this offense back. And look, I'm not going to try, Scott, to make a mountain out of a molehill comparing or say anything close to how much better it looked this week with Jarrett Stidham than what it's. The biggest difference is they were more on schedule. They did use he was reading more of the field. He wasn't just keeping it high-low. He wasn't breaking the pocket as soon as he hit his back foot. And those are the type of little things that drive coaches crazy when they work as hard as they do to coach them up. They work as hard as they do on the whiteboard. They work as hard as they do to install the scheme and teach the scheme. And the scheme gets completely thrown out the window as soon as that quarterback hits his back foot.
What am I even here for? What am I even doing if you're just going to freelance every time I call a play?
Yeah. But Russ, traditionally through most of his career, he would offset that by just being way more on point when he would go off schedule, like always picking up the first down, moving the chains, big plays, and a more consistent ground game. Like Sean Payton, if you had maybe one additional running back that offered a little something, it might have helped this year, but I don't want to take that away from Russ. It's not like he's been some terrible quarterback. I mean, he was a 9-time Pro Bowler in 10 years in Seattle, and he did some great things this year, but he driving his head coach nuts with how he operated the offense.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to, are you worth what you're getting paid? If the answer is yes, then you're safe. If the answer is no, then you're not. And he was about to get paid big time. He hadn't been paid yet. He's going to get paid, just not, while he's playing with the Broncos. Kathy says, Chad, I still love the Wilson jersey because it means so much more to me than just a jersey. Thank you again for that gift.
Yes, Kathy was battling something truly significant And so I sent her out I told her pick a jersey, and she picked a Wilson jersey, and we had it sent to her in Germany to cheer her up and just let her know she has love and support out there through what she's been going through. It's pretty brutal, I'll just say, health scare. And so I'm glad to hear it. And Wilson will, even if he hangs up his cleats a week and 1 day from now, says, hey, I'm retiring. He was 2 years your starting quarterback of the Broncos, and he's a quality guy. I mean, some of the things that have happened this last week have made me wonder a little bit more about the quality of Russ, like how hard he is asserting the threat thing, and just with some of the other reporting that's come out. But I still think his heart's in the right place, and he just isn't the same player that he once was. But I'm glad that jersey still means something to you. It always will mean something to us over here at MHH. So, and Justin, all good. Hey, don't worry about it, big dog. No problem. It's all good. It's all good. The Lady D from the top rope ushering in. We're about out of time, guys. Deanna Hendry with a very generous super chat saying, hope everyone has a wonderful new year. MHH for life. Right back at you, Deanna. Thank you for everything. And remember, either tomorrow or Thursday's show, maybe tomorrow, but probably Thursday's show, we're going to unveil the 2023 Mount Rushmore list. We're going to put up on our YouTube channel and all our social media, and we'll debut it for you guys. The top 20 Super Chat superstars of 2023, and no doubt Lady D will be on there somewhere.
For sure, and we'll do it Thursday. I don't know that we'll have it turned around quickly enough to do it for tomorrow night's show.
Yeah.
It is New Year's Eve. So I want to ping back and forth just a few times in the final minutes that we're going to be here. What are some of the things you're looking forward to in 2023?
Well, there's only 5.5 hours left of 2023. 2024. I know.
See, I'm already off.
What
are you looking forward to next year, Chad?
Honestly, like, I know I've said this already a couple of times tonight, but I'm honestly relishing the Broncos being in the quarterback market because, you know, it's the possibility of it as a fan, you know, back in the 80s, you know, being a kid that had the Elway posters and the Three Amigo posters. And I mean, I'm still a Broncos fan through and through. And so the potential side and what could it be? And plus with what I do for a living, Scott, what we do here for a living, the idea of a team being in the quarterback hunt. I mean, it just makes, which is, you know, I love the first quarter of every year is always my favorite because you get all the rumors and the hiring things and the signing rumors and the actual transactions and the draft pick rumors and the actual picks and all the scouting, this and that. I love that. And that gets intensified, Scott, a few fold when it's a quarterback search. So I am very much looking forward to that.
I am looking forward to, let's say the Broncos finish where they do right now. They're at 15th. The highest they could go right now is probably, 16 is what it looks like, based on tiebreakers and stuff. But the last time the Broncos drafted that high, they got close to that high as Pat Surtain. I mean, I know he was a few picks higher, but when you're talking about not having a first-round draft pick for a while, it's been a while since been able to talk first-round pick.
True.
I'm looking forward to a draft pick.
That's
I'm gonna do another one, then you're gonna have to come back quicker on me because we're about to go. I'm looking forward to the growth of some of the young defenders from next year. I'm looking to see Riley Moss and Drew Sanders, which some significant investment was put into them, and they haven't really – it's been kind of a redshirt year for them. Broncos need them to step up next year. I'm looking forward to seeing their growth in 2024.
I'm glad you brought up Sanders specifically because he did – for the first time in a few weeks, he's made a couple of plays. His biggest play this year was recovering a fumble, but he made a couple of nice plays today. I'll give him credit. 3 solo tackles. And by the way, tip your cap to Alex Singleton, who finished today with 11 tackles. And get this, in so doing, Scott, he ties 2 players, including Hall of Famer Zach Thomas, for the most double-digit tackle games by an NFL player in a single season since '99. So he has 12 now. He has 12 double-digit tackles, so good for him. Riptide, one more, guys, and then we got to go. Appreciate you, bro. Seriously. I've lost count now. 7, 8 on fire, dude. Thank you. It says Russ versus the Chargers. He had 63% completion, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns, with Sutton bailing out a bad throw. 1 interception and a 91 rating with a fully healthy offense. Jarrett Stidham versus the Chargers, 62% completions, 218 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a rating of 93.8. He's officially credited for what it's worth, 224 yards passing in this game. So narrow, he ties Russ in that sense. But I get your point and the illustration here. Box score, I think people make too much out of, box score stat or scouts, It's box scores can tell you something. They keep track of the statistics for a reason. But Scott, my biggest takeaways from this game relative to the quarterback position really didn't have much to do with the box score. It had more to do with just kind of how the offense looked and the takeaway that the end result, we're talking about a paycheck gap of 40 some odd $1 million or whatever it is, comes out in the wash being basically sixes.
Yeah, but the box score to me on this one tells me the Broncos were not getting their money's worth, and they did not need to keep throwing good money after bad. They needed to cut their losses as soon as they possibly could, which is 2024 and 2025, and not let that bleed into any farther than it has to.
Yep.
That's my takeaway from this whole week is Russell Wilson wasn't worth what he was about to be paid. Cut your losses so you can get out from under his contract as soon as you can. End of. Everything else is just chatter to me.
Ronk, love you, big dog. Thank you for being with us tonight. Your positivity, the support you show us always, Facebook, on Twitter, X, YouTube, you name it, bro. So thank you. We love you guys. Before we dip on out of here, make sure you're following our main podcast Twitter account at the MHH Pod, our main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. You want to get a MHH hat, turn in the new year in style, get yourself a Buckham t-shirt, mhhmerch.com. Also, guys, make sure you're following us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle and TikTok, by the way. A lot of stuff we put out there. If you got 5 seconds, open up your Apple phone, open up Apple Podcasts, and leave your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some swag each and every month. Helps us out in a big, bad way. And every single show, even if you're watching this right now, and maybe my show's not your favorite show, but your favorite show, Scott's show in the morning, Broncos for breakfast, still rate it under all the podcasts at MHH are under the same umbrella on Apple. So make sure you're still leaving that 5-star for your favorite MHH podcast. Enters you in to win. And look, like, subscribe, share. The ticker below helps us grow and reach new like-minded Broncos fans just like you.
And Riptide says it all for all of us. Love you, Broncos country. Happy New Year. Please be safe out there. Spend some time with some loved ones, etc., etc. It's been a heck of a year. I'm happy I got to spend the final broadcast of 2023.
That's right.
With y'all. I've had a blast. I'm looking forward to 2024.
Amen. Much love and respect to each and every one of you. Seriously, if you're within the sound of my voice right now, or if you're listening to this on demand, you're within the sound of my voice. Appreciate you. Every one of you mean the world to me, to all of us here. So have a happy new year. Stay safe tonight. If you plan on imbibing a little bit of adult beverage, make sure you have a designated driver. And we'll see you next year, which happens to be tomorrow night for the Aftermath podcast. Zach will be back. So see you then.